Welcome to part 5 of the Beginner's Guide to Drawing a Face. In part 1 we did the basic framework for structuring the face. Part 2 we covered shading. Part 3 was where we went into proportions. We also did the details for the eye. We did the bottom of the nose, the nostrils and the ball of the nose. We did the lips, we did the ear. Part 4, that's where we covered the detail on the nose. We also did more detailed shading and structuring of the face. Now we're on part 5. For this part, I'm going to be covering 6 different expressions, emotions that the face can make, and showing you how subtly you can adjust the framework of the face in order to convey those feelings. So, okay, if you're ready, let's get started. So if we begin by drawing the structure of the face. Now if you haven't already, check out part 1 to 4. It's not that long and it's completely free, and I show you how I structure a face from imagination. You can skew these different proportions, you can play around with them and make them into your own face, but make sure that you try to keep it proportionate. That's something which we touch on in part 3. So we're drawing this structure. And the face is going to change a little bit. It's not exactly the same character. We've got vaguely similar features, the same sort of hair, but the face is going to slightly change as far as who the personality of the actual image is going to be. So you'll have to forgive that. I'm not doing exactly accurate features for this same character. They do look a little bit like different people as I go along. But the point being that if you follow these steps, you can show how to make these different expressions. And for this first one, we're doing disappointment. Now it's subtle changes you make to where you position things like the eyebrows. The eyebrows are down into a frown. You can see these 2 lines in between the eyebrows which define this bulge in between the 2 lines. That's called the glabella. And that is something which is prominent in people who are expressing a frown and dissatisfaction. But to show disappointment, you also show that in the nostrils and the lips. And it's slightly downturned on the lips. The nostrils are a bit more flared, and you can see that at the edges, the corners of the nostrils, you can see a little bit more darker shading there, because disappointment will bring out a small amount of disgust in people who are really expressing and emoting how they feel. So that's how I'm covering that first expression. Now, after disappointment, we're going to go to disgust, and you will see a clear difference from disappointment to disgust. Although there's very subtle differences in where you position the eyebrows, the nostrils are really going to express a lot in this. And you're going to see a lot of flaring of the nostrils, as well as the lips, to show a level of repulsion, I suppose. It's not a pleasant expression, but if you want to show that in a character that you want to draw and you don't want to use references, you can make these characters from these little tips and tricks here. But then we're going to go to the next expression and emotion, which is going to be sadness. Now sadness you can show very, very quickly, and the way that we're going to show sadness here is slightly upturned for the eyebrows as opposed to being down. Now in disgust you can see the eyebrows almost look angry, whereas for sadness they are not quite straight, they're slightly bowed upwards. And the eyes also express that with how they kind of are, they're not completely wide open like shock, but they are definitely in an upturned puppy dog looking position. So for disgust the eyes are more narrowed, and for disappointment they're not quite as soft as they are for sadness. Sadness brings out a real tenderness and softness, but you do have the downturned lips similar to disappointment, but the eyebrows express a lot of what you're seeing when someone is expressing sadness. Now for the fourth emotion that we're going to cover in this video, we're going to be doing surprise. Surprise is a big emotion. We're going to have the eyebrows in a similar position to what we do for the face in its resting position, but you're going to have the eyes wide open so that you can see the full iris. Normally, I ensure that when you draw the eyes, the iris is cut off by the eyelids. But for surprise, you're going to see the full iris, full circle. The mouth is going to be slightly open, but we're not trying to make it too cartoonish. Even though this is not looking like a realistic face, it's not a massive amount of work you need to do to push these faces into a more photorealistic position. But for now, we're keeping it simple positions for the features and shading to show the light source. Another thing that I've slightly changed in this video to others is how I draw the nose. You may see that I do a slight pinch in the center. I think it's quite a nice feature to change the character of the nose, so that's something that you might want to try as well. But yeah, for surprise, the eyes are wide open, the mouth is slightly open. There's no disgust showing in the nose, so we're not doing too much shadow there. And in sadness, you can see how there is a little bit of shadow creeping in towards the edge of the nostrils, but that is more the upset, which is shown from the eyebrows, the eyes, the nostrils and the lips all show that someone is almost on the verge of tears. Whereas surprise, you don't have the tension in the sides of the nostrils. That's almost relaxed, and the mouth is starting to become agape, and the eyes are expressing the shock, the surprise. So for part 5 of this video, we are going to cover happiness. Happiness is another big expression of an emotion. And we're going to do it with a similar position for the eyebrows. Again, they're in a resting position. They can go down a bit more, especially if someone's laughing. They can go down almost into a concerned position. But we're not going to do the laughter because that's a bit more of a technical emotion, and I'm going to cover that in later parts of the videos for drawing a face. And in this, it's just going to be covering happiness, which is a nice big smile. Now the eyes are really squinted quite closed, and you can't really see the whites of the eyes. It's all shaded, and then you can do darker shading in certain parts to suggest where the eyeballs actually are, but it doesn't need to be clear at all. You're going to have definite lines coming from the sides of the nostrils to define where the mouth is positioned to sort of spread and have that effect on the cheeks. And then the way that you draw the mouth is to definitely have that space between the top and bottom lip to show the teeth. Now ordinarily the teeth aren't brilliant whites, like we're going to leave it here, but this is just to give you the expression. So I'm not doing it with the teeth separated, but I am doing it so that you can see the teeth, and it affects the whole face. It widens the length between the nose and the bottom of the jaw, and you have a nice little kind of a little indent at the corners of the lips there, where you can see they are showing that shadows can gather there in the sides of the mouth, because when the mouth is wide open and smiling, it has an effect on where the light can reach and where shadows can collect. And for the 6th part of this video, we're going to be talking about suspicion. Suspicion is quite a fun emotion to show, because you can use that for if you're drawing a detective character or a partner who's suspicious of their loved one, or whatever you like, you know, whatever kind of scenario you want to draw, you can show this as suspicion. So for this, we're going to have one eyebrow raised, and that's something which is a little bit cartoonish, but you will find that when people express suspicion, they will subconsciously have these parts of their face move, because it's hard to keep a neutral kind of pose on your face without psychological effects on your expression. It's kind of a tell, you know, and that's why body language experts can talk about how we do express a lot through our facial expressions and all these tiny little muscles in the face that are activated based on our emotions. Now there'll be slight hints of disgust at the side of the nostrils, but not enough to make it look like disgust. It's just carrying down. The eyes are narrow, so you're not having the eyes wide open, and the lips are slightly turned down, but not enough to have these little lines that we had for disappointment at the beginning. For that, we want to keep everything almost in a resting position except the eyebrow, the sides of the nostrils and the downturned lips. And that is going to be how we show suspicion in this character. And that is all 6 of the expressions that we're going to be covering. I think they're quite fun. There are several more that I'll be covering as this series progresses, but the next thing that I'll be covering is how to draw the face with this simple structure from the 3/4 position. So instead of from straight on, 3/4, which is how you typically want to draw a lot of characters. You don't want them to be straight on because people rarely are, especially if you're not doing a first person perspective. There's also going to be a side profile and drawing people from 3/4 from the back. And then there's going to be the head tilting from different positions, working along, drawing the whole body, drawing hands, drawing great gestural poses. All of this series I'm going to be expanding and producing, but it will be on my Patreon channel. Now I haven't launched that yet, but I am very close to launching it. I keep announcing it'll be next week, it'll be in 2 weeks, and it's taking a long time. The reason for that is because I have other projects that are taking my time and attention, and they are more priorities than creating another channel. But when I do have a Patreon channel, it'll be about 1 video a month, and I'll be asking about £3 a month from anyone who can support me on the channel. In the new series, I have a green screen. I'm going to have it a lot more interactive. There'll be small animations, and there'll be a lot more ways of communicating how to draw things that are quite complicated, but in a simple way so that it's not too challenging, and things which I've enjoyed learning, but I learnt it from practice, and now I'm trying to teach it a different way than I see others teach, because I just don't learn the same way that other people learn. So if you're anything like me and you learn a little bit differently, then try it out and see what you think. But aside from that, there'll be other content as well. I have a life drawing model, and she'll be providing me with reference images which I'll be able to use, and there'll also be different parts of content that won't be available on YouTube. I won't discuss all of them yet, but that'll be coming up soon. So if you can support me on Patreon, I will be announcing that on this channel very soon. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks very much for watching.